Hello, my name is Michael Kleen, and I'm the author of Tales of Coles County, which, as you can see, has a brand new edition out. And today what I'm doing is reading a selection from the book. I'm going to be reading from each of the three sections of the book. There's one on Legends and Lore, one on the original Tales of Coles County, which was historical nonfiction, and then one on the hidden history of Coles County. So this reading today is going to be from Book 1, Tales of Coles County, which is a collection of historical nonfiction stories that kind of goes through Coles County history. It's about a group of kids from Eastern Illinois University who become stranded, and they seek shelter in an old cabin where they meet an elderly couple who tell them stories about the county's past, some of the most significant events. So I'm going to begin today with The Old Miller's Tale. The 1990 Dodge Omni's engine sputtered under a torrent of heavy rain that beat against its rusted body. Its driver, a young man in his early 20s named Max, leaned forward and tried to see past the curtain of water tossed around by the painfully inadequate windshield wipers. His heart raced, and his eyes frantically darted from sky to the road. Thick black clouds swirled dangerously close to the treetops, and visibility was reduced to inches beyond the Omni's headlights. "Are you sure you know where you're going?" Nancy whined from the back seat. She wore a teal blue tank top and light gray yoga pants with Old Navy stenciled on the rear. There were two other passengers in the small car. Tammy, Max's girlfriend, sat on the front passenger side, while Max's best friend, AJ, sat next to Nancy. The four were heading down Route 130 south of Charleston to a camping spot for the weekend. Max, who made no secret about his dislike for Nancy, pretended to clean out his ear, earning a scolding rebuke. "Why don't we just turn back?" Tammy suggested, her short red hair bobbing with each syllable. "We're not going to be able to enjoy our weekend anyway." The weather forecast hadn't predicted rain, but then suddenly the radio announced a tornado warning. "Please don't start, Tammy," Max pleaded. "I don't need you against me, too." "No one's against you, hon," she said defensively. "It's just pouring rain, that's all. We can barely see what's in front of us. This is scary." "It's going to let up any minute," Max insisted while he took the car around a sharp turn. His eyes were so focused on the dark clouds above that he didn't see the black shape in the headlights. It moved too quickly for his foot to react. Nancy, who gripped the headrest, screamed as the animal's body dropped with a thud on the hood before rolling awkwardly onto its four hooves. The Dodge Omni screeched to a halt as Max slammed on the brakes. The deer twitched and shook its spindly legs in fear and confusion for what seemed like an agonizing amount of time before stumbling off the road into the forest. The four students sat in stunned silence while the rain tapped on the hood and smoke poured from a violent crack in the grill. "What was that?" AJ asked, his voice trembling with adrenaline. "A deer, I think," his friend Max whispered from behind the wheel. Everyone inside the car was deathly still, and only a few moments passed in which the spattering of rain was the only sound the four heard. The smell of old gym shoes, cigarettes, and radiator fluid filled their nostrils. AJ's hand reached for the door handle. "We need to push the car off the road," he said with uncertainty. Nancy pulled out her Motorola Razr and said, "I'm going to call a tow truck." She flipped open the phone and then violently shook it. "Damn," she yelled in frustration. "There's no reception. Why are we out in the middle of nowhere?" Max put the gear shift in neutral, and his friend and he raced from the car into the rain. As the downpour soaked their t-shirts and shorts, the two young men pushed the Omni slowly forward with the two girls inside. AJ cursed, but was thankful that he wore his baseball cap as water dripped down the brim away from his eyes. "What are we going to do now?" he shouted over the thunder. "I think I saw a light up there," his friend replied. "Maybe it's a farmhouse. We could go ask for help." The car slipped from their hands with a jerk and came to a stop in a sloppy ditch along the roadside, where they threw open the passenger doors. "Max thinks he saw a light up ahead," AJ shouted to the girls. "We're going to check it out. Maybe we can get help." "We are not staying here by ourselves," Nancy shrieked as she grabbed her purse. Tammy zipped up her green loop terry hoodie for some protection from the storm, while Max helped her out of the car and held an old copy of the Daily Eastern News over her head to block the rain. AJ trudged ahead while his girlfriend struggled to pull herself from the back seat. "Where is this place?" he yelled as raindrops smacked the pavement and thrashed the greenery. "I saw it just around the bend," Max yelled back. His eyes scanned the tree line until they fell upon the soft yellow glow of a window in the near distance. A flash of lightning illuminated the small cabin for a moment before it plunged back into darkness. The four left their broken car behind and sprinted toward the dwelling. "I don't like this," Tammy whispered in Matt's ear as they rushed ahead. "I don't like just going up to someone's house at night and barging in. We don't even know who these people are." "We have to," Max replied. "What are we supposed to do? Sit in the car all night until someone comes along? We only saw one other car a whole way down here." As the group neared the cabin, they passed a wooden mill set back from the road, its ancient wheel creaking in the rushing waters of the Embera River. Max thought it looked like it belonged in a Tim Burton film. There were so many holes, he thought the wheel would break off at any moment and be carried away by the current. Before they knew, they were up on the cabin's porch, bracing themselves for the reception they were about to receive from its unsuspecting residents. AJ's hand reached for the door handle, but to his surprise, it jerked away on its own. The four students jumped back with the click of the latch. The door slowly opened to reveal a small man with leathery, creased skin, a lightly trimmed beard, and baggy old clothing. His toothy grin greeted them warmly as the soft light coming from the lit fireplace and oil lanterns inside. "Harold, who's there?" a woman's unsteady voice called from somewhere out of sight. Come in," Harold instructed the four students, ignoring her question. He grabbed AJ by the arm and guided him into the cabin. AJ looked back at his friends with a worried expression mutually etched on all of their faces. "We're sorry to bother you," Tammy cut in with a sympathetic tone, "but our car broke down out there. Something hit us, and it was pouring, and we saw your place here." "You shouldn't explain, dear," Harold's wife, Edith, assured her. "We're glad to have the company." She was a striking woman, with streaks of gray in her otherwise austere hair. Like that of her husband, her face was creased with age and decorated with liver spots. The elderly couple led the students into their claustrophobic cabin that, for all eyes could see, consisted of a wide front room and one bedroom in the back. The cabin smelled like old cedar, and there was no visible bathroom or closets. A single cast-iron stove sat in the corner opposite the fireplace, near some hand-built shelves. The sturdy wooden table in the middle of the room was set with dishes, and it looked as though the couple had just been sitting down for dinner. "Do you have a phone?" Max asked loudly and deliberately. "None of us can get a signal out here." "A signal?" Harold repeated. "No, I don't think we got one of those." Max threw up his hands incredulously. "Oh, you must get dry clothes on," Edith said cheerily. "Harold, see if you can't find something for these boys here." She turned to Nancy. "Oh my, I don't think any of my clothes will fit you, dear." "Maybe I have something from when I was a young'un." Nancy couldn't hold in the laugh that escaped, and an awkward silence followed while the old couple searched their antique armoire for dry clothes. "Why do they talk like they're from the South?" she whispered. AJ leaned over and gave Max a worried look. After the four took turns changing into their used clothes, which reeked of mothballs, they were invited to sit down at the dinner table, where they waited in silence for Edith to slowly put food on their plates. Nancy pulled with contempt at the loose sleeves of the faded gray dress she wore, while Max tried not to look like he was scratching his legs, which were getting irritated from the rough cotton pants. "Where y'all from?" Edith finally asked. "Oh, we go to Eastern," Tammy piped up. "You know, EIU. We're heading to Fox Ridge for the weekend to go camping." Edith glanced at her husband, a wry smile on her face. "How nice," she said as she dumped a piece of meat on Nancy's plate. Her hand shook, but still moved with nobility. "Oh, I don't eat," Nancy started to say, but the elderly woman cut her off. "Why don't we say grace?" she suggested. "Harold?" Harold and his wife closed their eyes and folded their hands together, and Tammy kicked Max under the table and gestured toward him to mimic their hosts. He reluctantly complied, while Nancy and AJ stared straight ahead, trying not to snicker. "How do you like it down here?" the old lady asked, when her husband had finished the short prayer. "It's beautiful in the fall, isn't it?" "It's okay," AJ mumbled before anyone could answer, "but it's pretty boring. Nothing ever happens." The elderly couple froze, and Max stared at his friends in disbelief. "Boring?" Harold echoed. Max quickly tore his gaze away and looked around the room for anything else to talk about. They hadn't been there more than an hour, and already his friends were well on the road to getting them kicked back out into the rain. By happenstance, his eyes fell on what looked like a pile of chipped stones on the fireplace mantel. "What are those?" he asked, pointing to the stones. The old man smiled. "Them's are Indian arrowheads, boy," he coyly explained. "Found 'em on this very property." He turned to AJ. "There's your boring history for you. I bet you didn't even know a battle had been fought right near our mill." "No, I didn't, sir," AJ replied, his voice tense with apologetic deference. Tammy perked up. "Why don't you tell us about it while we're eating?" she suggested. "We would all love to hear about it. Right, AJ? We could all use a little break from talking. Right, AJ?" AJ reluctantly mumbled affirmatively while hiding his face behind a glass of water. The old man's demeanor brightened. "Yes," he agreed. "Maybe I'll learn a thing or two." Nancy picked at the strange-looking meat on her plate as Harold began his story. So that is the introduction to Book 1. And after that, they go into a series of stories about Coles County history, some of the more dramatic events, the Second Battle of the Ambra, the Charleston Riot. There's one on the Coles County Poor Farm during the 1930s, and there's one that takes place during the Airtight Bridge murder, and there's another one, a new one that I added that takes place during the Blair Hall fire of 2004. So I hope you enjoy. The book will go on sale in October, and pre-orders are available now. There's a link below to where you can get that. So once again, my name is Michael Clean. This is the book, Tales of Coles County, and thank you for watching.